Yes. Yeah. It's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about dance recently because one of the people who blurbed the book is a really wonderful choreographer here in Canada, and she worked with Baryshnikov, and she's just really wonderful. And they're doing an intensive on partnering right now, and so I was thinking about partnering in the book, and then I was thinking about, yes, listening. It really does come down to listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Dan is really good at listening.
You know what? It's I don't necessarily want to interrupt, and I'm platforming, if anything else, especially because as a lot of these topics, I'm interested in, even if I'm not necessarily party to them personally, as I am very much not a lesbian, and I'm not a poet either. So I'm sort of on the sidelines and enjoying the discourse almost academically. And it's just fascinating to, hear you talk. You probably wouldn't hear from me for another hour if I let you keep going.
Hey, Carolyn, I just looked up.
Yes, Mary.
I just looked up the preface to my anthology, Irresistible Sonnets, and it says that sonnets are an intimate dance between poet and form.
Uh-huh.
How do you like that?
See? I love that. Yeah. No, I often sort of consider all of these different dancers who love poetry and poets that love dance. I mean, I think there is something inherently. If it was a Venn diagram, it would be a very big crossover section in the middle.
Well, and I appreciate that you talk about it as a broad form. You're not, a lot of people when they're thinking of this idea, they usually just think of like, oh yeah, well it's like ballet. It's all they think about from an artistic dance. But waltzes and all kinds of other kinds of dances that tie into that.
Hey, Carolyn, I don't know if I ever told you, I danced my whole childhood, too, as well as singing. I was always, I did folk dances and square dances and waltzing. I even performed in a modern dance in college. The dance teacher,
come on.
Yeah, the dance teacher picked me, she called me a non-dancer. I was just sitting in on her classes, not sitting, but I was taking her dance classes as my exercise, and she picked me to perform in her dance, which was just the greatest experience. And then
I love
her friend got me to perform in New York City at the Kitchen downtown.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Little space downtown. And I
it's a great space.
Performed in her dance there as a dancer. I mean, I was really dancing. I was a dancer.
Okay. I love that.
I don't think you knew that.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It doesn't surprise me one bit. Yeah.
And then my connection to art is that I had a wonderful love affair with my, but with an art professor in college. And so she took me around to all the galleries, and I was her art assistant. So that really got me into art in a very deep way. And in fact, my upcoming book, My Girl's Green Jacket, has her in it, and it's a very visual art kind of book, although it's not ekphrastic at all. It's, for some reason, I don't know how it happened. There's a lot of colors in there, and it's, visual somehow.
Oh, I love it. Is that the one, what's it called?
My Girl's Green Jacket.
Yeah. So the one that I sent when I was in Toronto, I saw the original artwork that's on the cover?
Yes, that's right. You saw it.
Right?
Yes. See, Dan, this is a perfect example of an unbelievably great female artist, Florine Stettheimer, who did her work in the early 1900s in New York. totally unknown until recently, and she's just absolutely great. And I am fortunate to have one of her pieces on my cover. And Carolyn saw the original piece in Canada on a show that was traveling there. And took
it was a show that was curated at the Jewish Museum in New York, and then it went to the AGO in Toronto. Right. And my pal Nadia and I, who we love to go to galleries together, and we used to dance together and stuff. And so we're going through the show, and I went around the corner. I went, "This is the cover of Meriam's book."
Yeah, and guess what, Carolyn? That artwork is a costume for a dance.
I know.
A French dance.
No, because because she also did sets and everything for dance. So she was it was Orpheus. Yeah. Well, I think I love it. Well, and also, she was really big into collage, and collage is a really sort of eclectic form, and you often show collage in Lavender Review. And again, I think it sort of all comes back around to those kind of overlaps between the different arts and stuff. And I have to say, and sometimes I do wonder about this, that kind of, is it a lesbian thing? Can you ask this question? Is it a lesbian thing to kind of have these kind of overlaps in one's creative process, because you've got this kind of hybrid life already? And I know in my own experience, I find that I'm attracted to things that are neither here nor there, one or the other. They're like hybrids, and and certainly that work that's on your cover is it's just perfect for your book.
Now that's a very interesting idea, really. Yeah, because we're not really, at least personally, I don't feel quite male or female, although I'm not going to call myself, what's the word they're using now?
Non-binary, gender fluid.
Non-binary, right?
Oh, non-binary. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Mary, do you know what I wrote a poem about this for myself one time when I was getting dressed to go out. It was a Friday night, and I was getting dressed, and I was like, anyway, the poem's called Yang Femme. And I call myself in different moments in my times, I call myself a Yang Femme sometimes. It's a play on what's that song now from the 80s? Something Yang something.
Oh, I know what song you mean. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think that song is in my mind. I think I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Oh, God, I can't believe I can't.
Is it Wang Chung?
Yes, thank you. Wang Chung tonight, yes. And so I was playing with that song, and I ended up writing this whole poem around that song and Yang Femme tonight and getting dressed. And anyway, so it kind of stuck for me a little bit, that kind of fluid thing that is neither here nor there or both. Both at the same time.
Yeah, in a way, should we really have to choose? I don't know.
No.
I find that interesting. I was reading one of there was a writer back in the 20s and 30s. She was a lover of Virginia Woolf, Vida Sackville West.
Yes.
Who had sort of operated in a sort of fluid sort of presentation where she was. There's no evidence that she was any sort of non-binary or anything, but sometimes she just dressed like a man when she was with her, her main lover. But other times other times she was she presented like a sort of like a woman. So it's it's interesting. It's not necessarily a new concern either.
No, and I actually think it is one of the things that, and this is where the word queer, I think, is an interesting word, is that it does kind of break through kind of binary, non-binary, spectrum kind of questions, and it just kind of creates this open space of possibility, where I do think it's kind of an interesting word, actually. And where you don't necessarily, the notion of choosing is not necessarily a global choice, but, you can kind of choose along the way. And it's sort of interesting, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yep.
Yeah.
I know. But I'm going to hang on to the word lesbian for a long time. I think for the rest of my life. I waltz around with the word lesbian. I hate it. I love it. It's in my next book. I use the word. In fact, one of the lines in one of my poems is lesbian, 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 lesbian. Take that, Dan.
That sounds like my journal on some mornings.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Just from friends of mine, I think that sort of strength and identity is very powerful for especially for people my age who are trying to who are lesbians or just not figuring out they're lesbians. The sort of strength of being able to identify something solid like that has a lot of power for them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that is the other part of that is that to really own something, you have to name it and really own it and live it and walk it, and that is a powerful and wonderful thing. I mean, that's for sure.
Let me just throw in a pitch for the Headmistress Press chapbook Charlotte Mew chapbook contest, which is happening right now. The deadline is July 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And we recently added a little asterisk to our about the contest statement. It's now called a lesbian identified publisher of books. And in the phrase lesbian identified, we include both women who identify as lesbians and people who identify with lesbians. We recognize that lesbian communities have been and continue to be informed by bi women, trans women, two-spirit, genderqueer, gender nonconforming, and non-binary people, and that many of these labels are not mutually exclusive categories. In that spirit, and this is the most beautiful sentence, in that spirit, we welcome submissions from all poets who feel an intimate connection with the term lesbian. Thank you, Samantha Pius. She wrote that.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that phrase,
yeah.
Intimate connection with the term lesbian. That's where it's
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
what you were just saying, basically.
That's very, very, very neat. I noticed that. I noticed that I noticed LBT as opposed to straight up lesbian when I was looking through it.
Yeah, and what I do with Lavender, what I've done through all the years, because I do publish poems by gay men and bi women and stuff. So I say lesbian poetry. Oh shit, I forget what I said. What do I say, Carolyn?
I don't.
Or maybe here it is. Anything LGBTQ that may appeal to a lesbian readership. See, I bring it back to the lesbian readership. That's what I said. Yeah, it took me quite a while to figure that out.
Well, and I think that's an important thing too. Is who the audience is, and the audience is interested in a wide range of people and voices too, and that's I think that's one of the things that in Lavender Review that I find quite interesting sometimes, where I just feel like, oh yeah, right, oh that's cool to see. Yeah.
And my last interview, I spoke with someone from Sinister Wisdom, and they're starting to not starting to, but